Let's create a design inspired by the African-American artist Alma Woodsey Thomas. Here are 3 examples of the project that we're going to do. You can pick one of them to do for yours. But first, let's look at Alma Woodsey Thomas's art. So here's 2 examples of her paintings that involve a circle shape. She often used a circle as the center point of her paintings, and then she continued with broken lines of color that follow the circle, and that's called using concentric circles. Other times she might use a different shape like a triangle, but we still see those broken dashed lines of bright color. She also used her dashed lines to create art in a different way, like a landscape, like we see here on the left. So which type of design will you create? Well, first, let's see some more of her amazing art and learn about her life as an artist. Alma Thomas was a painter and art educator, best known for her colorful abstract paintings. She was born on September 2, 1891 in Columbus, Georgia. While growing up, Thomas showed her artistic capabilities and enjoyed making small pieces of art, such as puppets, sculptures, and plates made out of clay from the river behind her home. Thomas attended Armstrong Technical High School in Washington, D.C., where she took her first art classes. She earned her college degree in fine arts in 1924 from Howard University. This made her the very first graduate from Howard University's Fine Arts program. Alma Thomas was also one of the first African-American women to earn an art degree. Her early art was realistic, though Howard University professors challenged her to experiment and make her art more abstract. Also in 1924, she began teaching art at Shaw Junior High School, where she remained teaching art for 38 years until her retirement in 1960. When she retired from teaching, she was able to concentrate on her own art full-time. Thomas finally developed her signature style. Alma Thomas's artwork was inspired by observing nature. Alma liked to observe the plants and flowers near her home. She liked to observe the way the sunlight changed the way the plants looked throughout the day, like how the light from a sunset can change the color that the plants appear to be. Using these observations, Alma Thomas created her signature style of abstract painting. Her artwork is known for its pattern, rhythm, and small dashed brushstrokes of color. Many of her paintings were done in acrylic paints on large canvases. She also liked to use watercolors to practice before working with acrylics. She painted with small brushstrokes of color in either circular shapes or in stripes. The colors that she chose were inspired by her observations in nature. In 1969, Alma Thomas watched along with the rest of the world when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon, which became a new inspiration for her paintings. Do you see how space might have inspired these paintings? In 1972, she was honored with an exhibition of her work at the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York City. She was the first African-American woman to have a show at the Whitney Museum. Alma Thomas passed away in Washington, D.C. on February 24, 1978. But her legacy lives on. Former First Lady Michelle Obama chose 2 of Alma Thomas's paintings to be exhibited inside the White House during the Obama presidency. Her painting called Skylight hung in the Obama's family private quarters. And her painting called Resurrection was hung in the White House old family dining room. The painting was the first work of an African-American woman to be on display in the public spaces of the White House as part of the permanent collection. Alma Woodsey Thomas is widely recognized as one of the most influential artists of the 20th century. Now that we've learned about Alma Woodsey Thomas, let's go over the directions for our project. For your supplies, you will need a piece of paper, a pencil, an eraser, and coloring materials like markers or paint or even oil pastel. I used markers for my example. An optional supply that you might like is some small circles to trace if you're going to create a design that uses a circular shape. First, choose an Alma Thomas painting to recreate. You can check out the examples being made in the video in just a moment. Then choose a pattern of colors to work with and fill your entire paper and space with short dashed lines of color that are close together. Continue this until you reach the edge of your paper. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So before you get started, make sure you have your piece of paper, a pencil, an eraser. If you'd like to make a design with a circle, you might want to start with a circular object to trace, and I'll show you how to do that. So some kind of small circle that you can trace, and then I will be using markers to add my color. You could also use paint or oil pastel, something that is thicker. Like if you'd like to paint, you can make a thick brush stroke. With an oil pastel, you can make a thick line of color. Something like a colored pencil, though, makes very thin lines. And when we look at Alma Thomas's art, she uses thick brush strokes of color. So I would suggest not using a colored pencil for this if you have other supplies to work with. So markers, paint if you'd like, or even an oil pastel might work well. And when you're adding color, try to find the thickest part of your material to add color with. So like this kind of marker has something called a chisel tip. That means it has this thicker side and it has a thinner side. But I want to focus on using the thicker side if I was going to use this marker, because it won't take me as long to fill up my paper versus if I was using these small thin lines. Now it might be nice to mix it up a little bit and add the thin lines in somewhere, but mostly use thicker lines. If you're using a marker with a pointed tip like this, then you can use the side of it to get a thicker line. You can use the tip of it to get a very thin line. So you have a variety of thinness and thickness here. So for your Alma Thomas design, you can choose one of her famous paintings to be inspired by. Often her paintings involve a circle with concentric lines that follow the shape of that circle and go out to the edge of her canvas. So this would be an example of that. Sometimes her paintings include two circles. Now this one I'm not quite finished with, but I'll show you how you could finish this. Other times her paintings are in different shapes. By her painting that has a triangle shape with lots of dashed lines of color, and I'll show you how to do that. You could pick one of her landscapes. You could also pick to come up with your own design. The important thing is that you're using broken lines of color, you have a pattern, and that you're filling your entire paper. Just using a shape, maybe a circle or a triangle, and dashed lines of color that fill up your entire paper. So to make a design that follows the shape of a circle, you can use circular objects to trace. Now I have two different sizes. I have this glue stick for my small circle, and then I have a coaster that's going to be my larger circle. You could use more than two, but you want to find a couple different sizes. Then decide where you want your circle to be. It could be in the middle, it could be off to the side. It could even be off of the page a little bit, but remember that you're going to fill your entire paper with color. So start with your largest circle and then trace around the edge of that by holding it down with one hand and tracing with the other. Then put your smaller circle in the middle of that. And you can kind of just guess where the middle is. My smaller circle happens to be this glue stick. You don't have to use a glue stick. Now these pencil lines are just going to act as guides as I get further out in my circle and I'm adding more color. I can make sure that I'm still working in a circle shape, so I'm not getting like a wonky, warped looking circle. Then you're going to find your smallest circle and color that in. Now, if you wanted to do a design that had two circles, well, then you could trace your other circle. So I could put this one off of the paper, maybe. That might be interesting. Then I'll put this in the middle and trace that. But to get started, you're going to choose a color for the center, outline that circle with the color, and then you're going to color it in. Now I'm not going to color in my next circle. It's going to just act like a guide for me. So then with my marker, I'm going to just draw those broken dashed lines of color. And when you're doing this, you want to be very close together and not leave a lot of white space in between. With my next row, I'm going to be very close to my last row with my lines. So I'm not leaving a lot of space in between again. And I'm going to do about 2 or 3 rows of each color that I choose in my pattern. Now with my next color, I'm very close to my last color again, and I'm following the shape of the circle. And I'm just gonna keep going until my circle gets bigger. So that's what I've done with this one, and eventually these circles are going to bump into each other. This area is gonna get filled up. So I have yellow here. I would continue adding lines with yellow, because I'm going to do 2 or 3 rows of each color. So this is my second row of yellow. And when I get to the edge of my paper, I'm just continuing as if the circle went off of the page. So this is using a little bit of cropping, and it's leaving a little bit to the imagination of the viewer of your art. So here with this yellow line, it's about to touch the pink. So I know with my next row of color here that I'm gonna have to make a decision. Am I gonna use pink next and make this circle bigger, or am I going to make this circle bigger? So it doesn't matter which one you pick, you are the artist. You just need to make a decision to stay consistent with your art. So I think I'm going to continue with this one. So I'm gonna use green next in my pattern, and I'm just drawing my lines where I can. So I'm not going to draw over the pink here, but I'm going to go around to the other side and continue with green. So my circles are bumping into each other, and the lines from this circle that I'm working on now is going to fill up these white areas that are left open. So I'm going to continue working in the pattern of that circle. Finished my design with 2 circles. Here is one more option that you can do for your Alma Woodsey Thomas design. You could draw a triangle coming from the bottom 2 corners of your paper up to the middle, and then you can draw dashed lines coming down that are one set of colors and another set of colors for your background. So I'm going to use cool colors on my triangle shape and mostly warm colors in the background above it so that my triangle stands out. So I just took a ruler and I drew a line from the corner up to the middle, and I did the same on the other side. I just used a pencil for that. Then I started drawing dashed lines inside the triangle shape, really close together. And I'm gonna fill that in and then fill in my background. And again, this is just one idea for your Alma Woodsey Thomas design. I am all done with my Alma Woodsey Thomas design in a triangle shape. I hope you had so much fun learning about the African American artist Alma Woodsey Thomas and creating a design inspired by one of her famous paintings. Remember that you can come up with your own design, but you should start with either a circle shape. You could include one circle, you could include two. Remember, if you include two circles, you need to decide which one is going to stop growing, like this one, and which one is going to take up the rest of the paper. Or another idea is the triangle shape design, or challenge yourself to come up with another design inspired by her work. I can't wait to see what you create. Have fun, artists!